13 people were arrested as
I
think it speaks to the disenfranchisement of the people that someone like him could be seen as offering anything to the masses.
Load up, load up, load up, we rob the police.
Little snowflake falling from the sky.
What about gay people? Trump has vowed to protect the LGBT community from a fanatical ideology that represents its biggest threat. Radical Islam.
As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology.
Load up, load up, load up, we rob the police.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
He is a racist.
Under Obama, more black people are living below the poverty line. The number of African Americans on food stamps has increased 58% under Obama.
On every leading economic issue, on the major economic issues, black Americans have lost ground in every one of those leading categories. So for the last 10 years, it's not been good for black folks.
Is this how the left helps black communities? By making them poorer and more dependent on government. Race relations are at their worst in decades. 8 years of Obama has been devastating for the black community.
He is a sexist. He is a neo-Nazi.
Well, we don't understand why you called in the National Guard.
Falling on my nose.
Not my president. He is a lying ass.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake,
Fake ass.
little snowflake falling from the sky.
Dumb ass son of a bitch.
Load up, load up, load up, we rob the police.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake falling, 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 falling.
That's not my president. That's not my president.
Load up, load up, load up, we rob the police.
Falling in my hand,
Thank you for taking America back 60 years of progress.
falling on my head,
You just voted in a Nazi fascist.
falling on my nose, falling in my hand. Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do?
The following is a Nightside Radio Studios production.
From the wind-powered Nightside Radio Studios,
Tear down this wall.
this is the J.J. McCartney Show.
It's this man. It's the compassion. It's the dignity. It's the wisdom. It's the horse sense of the guy.
Did you know that 65% of the people murdered in the last 10 years were killed by handguns?
Would it make you feel any better, little girl, if they was pushed out of windows?
The American people have seen the truth, and they can see through your lies. There's coming a day when publications such as yours turn into nothing more than flea market advertising. They'll be handing it out for free in grocery store parking lots under everybody's windshield wiper. Yeah, that's the future for the Washington Post and the New York Times and every other liberal publication in this country. We are not going to tolerate your bull anymore. None of it. The American people are fed up. I thought we made that clear on November 8th, but apparently you people in the media just don't get it. A new chapter in American history begins now.
It is my high honor and distinct privilege to introduce to you the President-elect of the United States of America.
Donald Trump is the person to make America great again.
We are a team.
They said it couldn't be done.
Together, we will lead our party back to the White House.
He said it must be done.
Beginning on January 20th, we cannot afford to be so politically politically correct anymore. The most important difference between our plan and that of our opponent is that our plan will put America first.
Here's J.J. McCartney.
All right, thank you, Marcus. Welcome, everybody. Hello there. Welcome to your Tuesday, the 16th day of January. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we got a lot of news to share with you today. You know what? I thought we were going to have Dr. Mark Davis with us today, but I may have been mistaken. And if I was, well, I will offer a mild apology because guess what? With all the news that we have to share with you today, we're not going to have any trouble filling up these 2 hours. So stick around, ladies and gentlemen. It all begins right now. Hello, how are you? Hope you had a good Martin Luther King Day. I do. I honestly mean that. I hope you had a good Martin Luther King Day. And now, it's Tuesday. It's the day after Martin Luther King Day. And we have a whole lot of stuff to share with you. Now, where do I start? Well, first of all, let me take off the glasses. Yep, it's going to be one of those days. Senior moments. I either hold it way out here or way up here. It's eyes. Yeah, you know what, folks? The older you get, the screwier everything gets, including eyesight. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a new star emerging over at the Department of Homeland Security. I wanted to give her proper respect because Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen confirmed today that her department has asked federal prosecutors to see if they can lodge criminal charges against sanctuary cities that refuse to cooperate with federal Department of Deportation efforts. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Department of Justice is reviewing what avenues may be available. Ms. Nielsen told the Senate Judiciary Committee today. Her confirmation came after California's new sanctuary law went into effect on January 1st, severely restricting cooperation between the state or any of its localities and the federal government. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director Tom Homan says that those policies put his officers and local communities at risk because they have to arrest illegal immigrants outside of the community. Now, Mr. Homan told the Washington Times last July that he wanted to see local officials charged as complicit in human smuggling if they shielded illegal immigrants through sanctuary policies. Mr. Homan repeated that demand in an interview with Fox News earlier this year, setting off a firestorm of criticism. Well, wait a minute. You expect the state of California to abide by the law? Now, why would that create a firestorm of controversy? Laws mean things. The Constitution is not merely a bunch of words. The Constitution is the law of the land. And if the state of California will not abide by it, then hell yes. Arrest any mayor, arrest any governor, arrest any law enforcement officer that restricts enforcement of immigration law. It's time to take the gloves off. You either believe in United States sovereignty or you don't. There is no middle ground available on this issue. And for those that think that that is an error, well, that's just too damn bad. You either get with the program or you pay a price. And you know, this is something that needs to be done right away. We need to make it ever so clear to all those paying attention that there's not going to be any more tolerance of this kind of nonsense happening in states like California. We're just not going to tolerate it. I mean, to me, this is the only way to deal with this. This cannot continue. It simply can't go on this way. And for those people out there that believe that they are somehow above the law, I think that it's high time. It's high time that the law was enforced as written, and that violators of said law pay a price for their defiance of it. There is absolutely no excuse, no acceptable excuse for the kinds of things we are seeing happen today. And I mean, it really does. It angers me that so many people think, well, I don't have to abide by the law. Well, what is that called, really? It's called anarchy. And it's high time we put a stop to it. It really is. I'm sick and tired of these people. I'm sick of their defiance. I'm sick of their lack of respect for the law. There is absolutely nothing that angers me more than seeing people like Jerry Brown and the ridiculous snowflake Gavin Newsom of California just being so defiant towards the president. Now, this is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's time that we put a stop to it. It is time that we made it clear to everybody that this is simply not going to fly anymore. It just can't. We can't allow this kind of defiance. It is the kind of thing that leads countries to complete destruction. If you take it to its natural conclusion, then what you're left with is a very dangerous precedent being set. And we mustn't ever allow that kind of thing in the United States of America. It's too important. Enforcement of the law is vital. It is absolutely imperative. And if people don't like it, there's lots of other countries out there you can go to. And nobody is forcing you to stay in the United States. But if you're going to be in the United States, then you better abide by the laws, or else. I mean, that's logic at work. It really is. And people that don't like it, well, there's the door. Don't let it hit you. I'm not trying to be cruel, but I am trying to be real. Everybody that is defying this president, there's going to be a price that you have to pay for it. And there's, absolutely no excuse. No acceptable excuse. Not in my book, anyway. All right, folks, phone lines are open, 855-853-5227. Now, over the weekend, I'm sure all of you are aware of the situation in the state of Hawaii on Sunday, where for 38 minutes, about 1 million cell phone users in Hawaii were on edge because the state's emergency management agency, they were supposed to run a test, a drill on Sunday morning, which would, essentially say this is only a test. This is a drill. It's not the real thing, but we're going to run through our paces here to make sure that all of our apparatus is in place so that if we were to be attacked, we would know that our apparatus to notify the people of the risk of a missile attack would work. Only problem with that is one individual was responsible for initiating the test. One individual sitting at a computer screen. And instead of clicking on just a test, he clicked on the button that said, this is an actual emergency. And then when the next screen popped up, it said, are you sure you want to do this? And once again, the individual staring at a screen that says, you want to issue a real alert or do you want to back out of this? He said, nah, let's go ahead and issue the real alert. Now, they say that this individual has been reassigned. And they also say that they have changed the process so that two individuals have to be present to initiate a test. And the individual that did this has been reassigned, but they haven't named the individual, and they claim, well, it wasn't on purpose. Does that really make any difference at this point? I hate to say this, but, Hawaii is run by Democrats. And according to Democrats, nothing is ever anybody's fault unless they're Republicans. So instead of naming the individual responsible for setting 1 million people into a panic mode in Hawaii, you had parents lowering their children into manholes in Hawaii, trying to get them underground before the nuclear weapons arrived. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there was a time in America when people were accountable. And if they made mistakes, and people sometimes do, if they made mistakes, then they would pay with their job. That's the way it used to be. You make a mistake like that, there's no walking it back, really. Once you push that button, there's no walking it back. All right, folks, phone lines are open at 855-853-5227. We got plenty of time in this first hour, and we would love to hear from you, your thoughts on what happened in Hawaii. Next hour on the program, by the way, we're going to talk with Sue from Mountain View Off-Grid Living. We'll talk about what happened in Hawaii and why it might be a good thing. Because what it showed people is how woefully unprepared they are for an emergency. And it is a lesson that all of us can learn from. I mean, there were people literally sitting, quivering, huddled masses, crying and waiting for the end. There were people out there that completely panicked, lost the ability to function as human thinking adults. And, that kind of terror, heaven knows how it affects people, but, obviously trauma, panic ensues, very understandable given the circumstance. But, what should happen to the individual that made this kind of screw up? How in the world they say, no, he's not going to lose his job. Now let's not go talking about radical stuff like firing someone just for making one mistake. Yeah. Folks, the idea of people taking responsibility for their actions, is it so archaic to expect and demand the state of Hawaii to consider the consequences of this individual's actions and say, I'm sorry, but we just cannot use someone like you in emergency management. So we're going to have to let you go. I mean, how hard is that? And how sensible is that? To me, that's perfect logic. It is absolutely perfect logic. Somebody makes a mistake like that, you don't leave them on the job. Because it's unpardonable. You just can't allow something like that to go unpunished. And I have a hard time understanding why many people have such a hard time understanding that. The bottom line is, you screw up like that, you don't get a second chance. It just doesn't happen. And if if the snowflakes out there cannot deal with that, then we need new snowflakes. I mean, seriously, folks, if you can't stand that heat, then don't get into the kitchen. It's not enough to say, oops, sorry, didn't mean it. It's just not enough. There's some things you can forgive, some things you mustn't forgive. And, there's just no way in the world you allow somebody in that position to make that kind of a blunder, that it doesn't just affect people in Hawaii. I mean, it affected people all around the world. I mean, there's an amount of this that spreads panic so quickly. And who knows? I mean, if the State Emergency Management Agency initiates an incoming warning, then what is the reaction of people all around the world going to be in those minutes that follow? You might have some other state out there that doesn't have all the information, but they see somebody has pushed a button in Hawaii and they say, holy crap, if we're going to defend ourselves, we better start launching our missiles now. And, the Cuban Missile Crisis was one thing. This happened in the year 2018. And, we'll talk with Mountain View Sue next hour about what everybody needs to know about prepping for just such a potential catastrophe. It's just not acceptable. Folks, we'll take a break. We'll come back with more in just 1 minute. Stay with us.
The J.J. McCartney Show.
Hey, everybody. J.J. McCartney back here for our good friends at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com. Folks, there's one thing that there never seems to be a shortage of in this world, and that is uncertainty, unrest. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Natural disasters, economic downturns, whatever it is, you can be prepared by going to MountainViewOffGridLiving.com. They have got everything you need, from ProPure gravity-fed water filtration systems to Kimberly stoves to these composting toilets. Ladies and gentlemen, at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com, you can prepare for anything. Food storage, no problem. Advice, no problem. Call our good friend Sue at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com. Find out what's there for you. Great prices, great advice, and guess what, folks? You'll find it all at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com.
The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Is this vast right-wing conspiracy that has been conspiring against my husband since the day he announced for president.
I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
This vast right-wing conspiracy.
I never told anybody to lie.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
Not a single time. Never. These allegations are false.
This vast right-wing conspiracy.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
The Clintons took $2 million from me and hid it.
Now, what we're looking at here is the largest election law fraud in the history of the United States.
Allegations of lying about the cost of a fundraiser put together on her behalf.
This vast right-wing conspiracy.
Whatever it is you're doing, is it okay that I thank you?
You know what? We're having a good time trying to help out.
This sounds like it's going to be a great event. I'm glad you were all together so that I could tell you how much this means to me.
This vast right-wing conspiracy.
My sister Katie and I are bargain hunters.
But my sister Kelly showed me an article that made me change a really bad habit. I used to buy bargain knockoffs on the street.
You mean counterfeit merchandise?
And this can lead to more Americans losing their jobs.
So, no more buying fakes, right?
Right, just honest bargain hunting.
Counterfeits hurt, but you have the power to stop them. Go to www.ncpc.org/getreal. Brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council and the Bureau of Justice Assistance, U.S. Department of Justice.
The J.J. McCartney Show. JJMcCartney.com.
Sunman moving all day. I got a sunman moving all day.
Have fun in the sun, but be sun smart. Anyone can get skin cancer, even young people. One person dies of melanoma every hour in the U.S. You can save your life by using sunscreen, skipping tanning beds, seeking shade, and getting spots checked. This is a public service message brought to you by Mayo Clinic.
Song provided by Miko Big Electric Music.
Yep, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back on the J.J. McCartney Show. Thanks for joining us today. Always a pleasure. Now, you know, we've been talking about what I think is obvious was, you know, if it was just an innocent screw-up, then how incompetent was this guy or girl? I mean, to do it once is one thing. To do it again, I mean, because they had to do it twice. And then it took 38 minutes to undo the damage. Well, I don't think the damage is really undone. I mean, how do you undo that kind of damage? It seems to me that the likelihood of undoing that kind of damage it's naive to think that you can undo it. And for the director of the Hawaii Department of Emergency Management to stand there, and by the way, the guy's last name I think was Miyagi, the director of the emergency management folks in Hawaii. He's out there up front saying, no, I know the individual. It was definitely not on purpose. Well, what does that tell you? Yeah, I know the guy. I'm sure it wasn't on purpose. I'm sure he's just stupid. Well, then what kind of department are you running there in Hawaii? I mean, it would seem that, you know, the top priority should always be competence. Should it not? I mean, what other criteria matters in that position? Now, you know, I could be wrong, but I'm not. I mean, what is your agenda if you're not going to fire the individual? I mean, I don't get it. How do you get fired from a government job? In Hawaii, of all places, where I'm sure they got, you know, oh, we got our labor unions. We'll step in if, you know, don't worry about it, buddy. Don't worry. We know you didn't do it on purpose. So they'll defend this guy tooth and nail, but, you know, he says, well, no, I know the guy. I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose. Really? You're sure of that? You know, because if you are, then you need to be fired too, buddy. I mean, really, so many questions. How in the world do you keep your government job when you sound the alarm like that? I mean, it's one thing in this story of the boy who cried wolf. That's one thing. But this is real life. All right, folks. And thank God I don't live in Seattle, Washington. You heard about this? Soda tax sticker shock grips Seattle. If you enjoy soda pop of any variety and you live in Seattle, then you're going to go into immediate sticker shock when you go to, Costco, the grocery store, whatever. Listen to this. On January 1st, Seattle had several new progressive laws go into effect, along with mandatory paid sick leave mandates for employers to post work schedules 14 days in advance and severe restrictions on short-term rental platforms. That's Airbnb, VRBO, etc. Seattle imposed a massive new soda tax. Are you ready for this? Listen to this. Seattle imposed a massive new soda tax. It's a 1.75 cents per ounce on sugary drinks. 1.75 cents per ounce. In other words, a 12-ounce can. Okay, that's 1.75. Let's figure out what that is. 12 times 1.75. Well, it's 12, obviously, plus another 9 cents. That's 21 cents tax on a can of soda, ladies and gentlemen. 21 cents per can of soda. Now, if you're buying a case of 24, well, it gets expensive. And it doesn't just apply to soda. It also applies to things like Gatorade. Now, in response, at least one major retailer advertised in detail the reason for the significant increase in prices. Costco, famous for selling products in bulk quantities, faces especially stiff price increases. On the previously mentioned pallet of 35 bottles of Gatorade, a list price of $15.99 is now taxed at $10.34, with a total cost of $26.33. Signs all over the Seattle stores list the tax separately, and then have another sign offering solutions to the consumer. Notice that they try to hide its true nature by calling it a fee instead of a tax. You look at the labels here. You've got the Costco price on 35 16.9-ounce bottles of Gatorade. The cost of the Gatorade, $15.99. And then they add $10.34 in what they call City of Seattle sweetened beverage recovery fee. Look at that. See if you can see that. They call it a recovery fee. So people are getting creative, I guess, in defining what it is you're actually looking at. So Instead of calling it taxes, they call it a recovery fee. City of Seattle. It's a common tactic among public officials looking to appear tough on tax increases. Now, this insane new fee, applies to a wide range of beverages, as a stroll through Costco demonstrates. You've got Monster Energy Drink. It is being taxed now at 24 16-ounce cans of Monster Energy Drink. The cost of the actual drink is $32.99. And then you add another $6.72, and that makes it $39.71. Now, the same is true for Coca-Cola Classic. 35 12-ounce cans. The case of Coca-Cola Classic. The soda itself, $10.99. And then the tax on top of that of $7.35. So now you're paying $18.34 for 35 cans of Coca-Cola. Now, call me old-fashioned, but I suspect that there's going to be a lot of people that get into the business of contraband. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, people that will go outside of the Seattle city limits to purchase their soda. Yep. Now, of course, don't ask Seattle City Council members about this tax. They held a press conference to make the simultaneous points that the new tax will generate $15 million in new revenue for the city, and it will force people to consume fewer beverages that they consider unhealthy. Now, Jim Krieger, who's on the committee for Seattle Healthy Kids Coalition, says, "I'm just very excited." He's also the executive director of Health Food America. The hope is consumption of the unhealthy product, which causes heart disease, diabetes, will go down, the sugary drinks to go down, and we fully expect that to be the case. Now, ladies and gentlemen, other motives are at play here. This is about sticking their hand in your wallet. Who is it that decides what's okay for your kids and you? The city of Seattle is so typical of snowflakes. It really is. How in the world do you justify this kind of overreach on the part of your government? $15 million Seattle expects to raise from this tax, they say, will go towards programs that will help people who are in need to have better access to fresh fruits and vegetables. You mean the genetically modified fruits and vegetables that you sell in the grocery store? So how is it that I could go into Costco or the grocery store and I could purchase all of the ingredients necessary to concoct sugary drinks, and I'd be okay? Or I, go in there and I buy all the ingredients necessary to make, a big batch of chocolate chip cookies to give the kids, and that's okay? But when it comes to what they drink, by golly, the big brother is right there, shaking you down. Now, back at Costco, signs above each taxed sugary drink remind shoppers you can leave the city and buy the product without paying the tax. Hello! And that's what That's what one customer plans to do. Says it'll have to be Tukwila. That's the closest to me, she said. Cairo, Channel 7 in Seattle, has talked with worried business owners. But city council members say they've looked at data from other cities that have this tax. Do you have any concerns at all about the hurting of local businesses and driving shoppers out of Seattle? Said Dee Dee Sun of Channel 7, asking city council members at the press conference on Friday. They said, we did not see any data that really shored up the argument that this hurts local businesses. Said Lorena Gonzalez, a city council member. There's not a lot of cross-border shopping. People realize it's not worth my while, Krieger said. One of his roles with the Seattle Healthy Kids Coalition is to follow the impact of the sugary drink taxes in other cities. So they hope to curtail this unhealthy behavior. And when people buy these drinks anyway, the tax revenues will help the city, and people aren't going to think about paying 40 cents less by driving a mile and a half outside of the city limits. You want to bet? Do you want to bet? You see, Seattle is not just another city, okay? If you, seriously, you know, my wife and I, we would leave town so fast, especially, you know, for, you know, things like this. I mean, we buy, you know, all manner of stuff. And if you tax the bejesus out of us for any of it, then we'll just leave city limits. It's that simple. And yes, it is worth it to drive a mile and a half. And it's not just the money. It's the principle of it. It's the principle of it. All right, let's go to the state of Utah, where we will answer the phone and say, hello, you're on the J.J. McCartney Show.
Hey, JJ, this is an Alaskan in the state of Utah.
I think I know.
Used to know as a kid.
By the way, if you don't mind, Corky, I just want to pay my respects to your dad. He was a wonderful man, and you know, he lived a very good life. He really did. And
I really appreciate that.
You know, well, honestly, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. The, you know, it's. You know, first of all, I'm sure that you feel blessed to have had him as your dad for so long. And
so long, 96 years.
It's just amazing.
Amazing amount of time.
It really is. Well, Corky, I know you wanted to talk about what happened in Hawaii.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Just with my dad's passing, and then today is also my sister's birthday, who also has left us. And so I'm thinking a little bit more about those things at this time, you know. And I think about, you know, what would be going through people's mind when they get that kind of a message, you know. And you think of the panic that so many would feel, you know.
Oh yeah,
it's just,
yeah.
Like you say, just unforgivable, you know.
I just don't know how in the world you can defend that kind of action. I mean, it's look, and the guy that's the head of the emergency management in Hawaii, he says, no, it wasn't on purpose. I know this guy. He would never do that on purpose. Well, and it's like, well, it doesn't matter. Possible. It doesn't matter if you know him or not. You know, if he makes this kind of mistake, I mean, you know, if you're going to defend him and say, no, it wasn't on purpose, I'm sure it wasn't, then I think maybe you need to lose your job too.
Magnitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, something of that magnitude. There's, like you say, well, it's good at least that they're putting in a second person that needs to do it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Be able to confirm it.
Pretty good idea. I mean, they've been doing it with nuclear missiles on submarines for a long time, you know? All it takes one rogue agent. But the thing is, I mean, you had people passing their kids down manholes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I heard about that.
You just imagine what would be going through the minds.
More drastic.
Imagine what must have gone through the minds of those parents as they're so, and the thing is, I mean, people are so woefully underprepared for catastrophes anyway, Corky, that, you remember the 1964 earthquake. I mean,
I do.
The people up there in Alaska, they were a completely different breed than what we have in America today. Because nobody panicked. Nobody we knew panicked. It was like, hey, we need some fresh water. Well, let's get it out of the toilet tank. There was no panic, no holy cow, what are we going to do? I mean, it was people kept their heads, especially in the city of Anchorage. I mean, they really did. And back then,
from that generation,
exactly.
The
civil defense
baby boomers from that. Right, from the greatest generation, their children,
Absolutely.
They were people of action, and they were people of,
I got to say,
let's fix it. What do we do now?
You and I had an extraordinary advantage, and that is the example that we were shown by our parents was so much more ready than people are today. I mean, everything is so comfortable at your fingertips today that people don't even think about it. I mean, where does your food come? It comes from the grocery store. Everybody is so hooked on easy, and, it wasn't an easy time. My parents grew up during the Great Depression, and I know yours went through it as well. And the thing is, when you survive something like that, then you're extraordinarily ready for anything that comes your way. And today, we just don't have that anymore.
You're right.
Somebody said, Americans today are too fat, dumb, and happy.
I'd love to dispute that, but I don't think I can.
Now, Corky, I want to talk about the sugary drinks thing in Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, I mean, we've been to Seattle, dozens of times. I'm sure you have as well.
Sure.
And the people of Seattle, I mean, they're getting what they deserve now. They're getting the government they elected. And I mean, first of all, I understand that you want to encourage people to engage in healthy behavior, but there's a point in time where you cross the line, and they're treating sugary drinks the same way they treated tobacco 30 or 40 years ago. And if it continues this way, I mean, what is the alternative to sugary drinks? You've got water, and, let's face it, kids hate drinking water today for some strange reason. But, there's nothing wrong with it, but, everybody likes what they like. And the idea that,
and you should have your opportunity to choose,
Well, exactly. And for them to put such a punitive price on something like soda, I mean, sooner or later they're going to do the same thing with cheeseburgers and, anything else. If it's fried, I mean, they're going to go, this is just the very beginning for them. And if they can get away with it, then you know what's coming next. I mean, they're going to monitor everything you buy at the grocery store. And sooner or later, they're going to try and manipulate your behavior. I mean, look at people that purchase food with the food, what is it called? The EBT cards for food. That, they're on food stamps basically, but now it's all electronic. They're going to monitor everything you buy at the grocery store. And by the way, we don't do that. We spend our hard-earned money on groceries. But the idea there has already been planted in the minds of these people that, well, we can control and manipulate people. It's so Orwellian. It really is.
Right. I just recently read the book. I can't even think of the name of it. With Big Brother.
1984.
1984. Thank you. I just recently read that about 8 months ago, and I had never read it prior. And so, so much of this is really sounding familiar. At least the early stages of it now.
Have you ever read Atlas Shrugged?
I haven't.
Oh my
That's
goodness!
one I've been considering.
Do you have a Kindle or an e-reader?
I do.
Oh, good. You'll need it, because my wife bought me the book, Atlas Shrugged, and the book is about 3.5 inches thick. And literally,
Okay.
I was hurting myself trying to read it. It's like dumbbells. But I got it on Kindle and I read it. It took a long time. It's a very long book, but aside from the fact that Ayn Rand was morally bankrupt in her own personal life,
Right. I did kind of look it up and look her up not too long after that, because I'd read some references to that. So
right.
That was one I wanted to read. So that's on my list.
But her vision of where things would go was frightening. I mean, it's really frightening how you see these things unfolding, and you see that everything is filtered through a groupthink in Washington and most state capitals as well, and individuals that stand against the tide. Well, look what they're trying to do to Trump. I mean, it's very clear that he believes in the American people, and the politicians don't. And it's it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy when you go to the people and you say, you're just not capable of taking care of yourselves, so we're going to have to make your decisions for you. And the next thing you know, all control has been lost, and the political dynasties that exist in this country are continually trying to undermine Trump because he is an existential threat to them. And the bottom line, Corky, I don't know how you feel about term limits, but I'm all for them.
I am too.
I mean, to me,
what I find interesting is that why did Trump get elected? He got elected because the people, everyone was being called names and being labeled as something, and they didn't feel that way, and they got tired of it. And so what did they do? They responded in the polls. And so to me, would not the left think, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't have done this, and maybe we need to do things differently? And so I had anticipated something like that. Maybe they come out in order to try to become stronger again, so to speak, right? But no, what has happened? It's just exacerbated.
Yeah,
much worse.
The thing about liberals, and I've held this belief for a long time. Liberals are mentally unwell. They really are, because they have been conditioned to never allow people to think about their own self-interests. Instead, what they've done, and your logic is sound. I mean, they got beat, and instead of learning a lesson from that, they've doubled down on what they do, and it is almost as if, I mean, first of all, and the news media is as culpable as possibly can be for for the attacks on Trump, and yet, you look at the stock market, you look at how the economy has responded to his policies, and it's laughable that these people don't learn from their mistakes, and and yet these are the people that are in control of all of the universities. This mindset has taken root in America's universities, and it's really, this whole idea of dumbing down the population. I mean, they are, they're about 40 years ahead of where we think they are in terms of the dumbing down of America, and that's frightening.
Right.
Because I remember when we were going to school, if you didn't make the grade, you didn't move on to the next grade. But today,
you didn't get a trophy?
Exactly. I never got a trophy. I never did. But I don't. But I'm okay now. But the thing is, we got to teach our kids that what you put into something is what you get out of it. And
no, I agree.
And today it's just so much different. And I'm sad. I mean, when we were kids, it wasn't necessarily the right thing to do. But we played playground games like Smear the Queer. I mean, it was a totally
King of the Mountain.
Was it insensitive of us at the age of 7 or 8 to engage in something like that without even knowing what the word meant at the time?
Absolutely not.
We weren't stupid. We were just kids. And today, what they've done is, they have tried to get inside the mind of every 5 or 6 year old. and completely undo anything that a conservative parent may have done in the first 5 years of that upbringing. You know, they're simply trying to replace parenting in the schools, and you know, you see a lot of it. I mean, you look at the environment you put kids in, and then you look how they turn out, and I worry. I really do worry for tomorrow, because so many children are being poisoned at such a young age, and they become militant, as we saw by the reaction of so many people after Trump won that election.
Right.
It's like, how in the world do you fix that?
Well, and part of it is I like to have discussions, and especially thought-provoking ones with my kids. And now that they're adults too, you know, I mean, I like them to think for themselves, not just to agree with me because I'm dad, but to really consider things and look at it logically. And, you know, because someone calls black white, does it make it white? You know, it doesn't. You
exactly.
have to, understand for yourself and think things through. And I've been really pleased with, the way they look at the world. You know, I mean, they're good, helpful people. They're very,
I know what you mean,
kind to other people, but they, they also don't just buy or drink the Kool-Aid that's being passed around.
That's right, the sugary Kool-Aid, yes.
Exactly.
You know, I look.
Otherwise, that'd be $5 more a 24-pack, right?
Here's how I looked at my daughter, and I always, it was always in the back of my mind, bringing her up. I was looking at her saying, "This is going to be the person that decides which home to put me in." You know, so I better be the best I can be in bringing her up. And we all want the best for our children, and today,
right.
Unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand what it takes to give the best to their kids, because they're so confused by everything in the culture today. This culture is just way too consumed with instant gratification and the idea that you can have what you want without having to work for it. And right. that's a terrible place to go as a society. Corky, it's so good to talk to you, my friend. But you sound great.
Definitely a pleasure.
And been way too long since we hung out together down there at downtown Anchorage. It was a long time ago. Amazing.
It definitely goes back, that's for sure. But I appreciate it. I just I try to listen whenever I can. Especially when I'm doing busy stuff at work or whatever. And then but I enjoy it, and I love to listen to you. You've got great insights, and keep it going.
Well, thanks, Corky, and you take care of yourself. God bless you, my friend.
Thank you, and thanks again for reaching out before and on Facebook. Take care now, my friend.
Thank you. Bye-bye. God bless.
See ya.
All right, friends, we got to take a break. Top of the hour, we'll come back with Mountain View Sue from Mountain View Off-Grid Living. We'll have her with us after we take the top of the hour break here on jjmccartney.com and redstatetalkradio.com. Also live streaming video on YouTube. Stick around. Hour 2 coming up next. Are these the first volleys in America's next civil war?
He's not a tough guy. He's a bully and he's a bitch.
He's a punk. He's a dog. He's a pig.
And he can suck my
He's a con, a bullshit artist, a mutt.
I'll meet him in a hotel room any day of the week and give him a Louisville Slugger.
I'd like to punch him in the face.
Kiss my mother.
Which side of the aisle is really spewing hateful rhetoric?
Pointing what appears to be a water gun at the image of President Donald Trump projected on a whiteboard, our teacher Pale Modi has now been seen by countless viewers.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Weekdays from noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, The J.J. McCartney Show, exposing the truth, exposing the lies, exposing the deep state.
It's an actor dressed to look just like President Donald Trump as he's assassinated on stage.
How much longer can America survive this kind of hatred?
Video depicting comedian Kathy Griffin holding the bloody, decapitated head of President Trump
are no joking matter for the Secret Service.
The rhetoric that has inspired the violence has come from the mainstream of the Democratic Party.
They're involved in the coup, an active attempt to start a bloody civil war.
I want people to imagine an FBI director that has the stones to investigate the deep state. Imagine a justice system that has the integrity to prosecute corrupt government officials. They have refused to apply the 14th Amendment and give conservatives equal protection under the law. What we've seen here has been the gradual takeover of the government by corporatism, by globalism. They have wrested control of our government away from the citizenry and put it in the hands of a few special interests. And these special interests are as evil as the day is long.
We finally do have a president who has the integrity to do this. We finally do have a DOJ who has the integrity to do this. We know that we have people around the president who not only have the integrity, but have the information and the contacts to get everything done you just said. And you say, well, why aren't they doing it? Everything you're seeing on the news, that's what it's about. That's what this investigation's about. That's what calls of impeachment are about. That's what the globalist attack against Trump is about. That's what the hearings are about. That's what the allegations of Russian spying are about. It's about keeping them off point, keeping them off the agenda, keeping them off task. A lot of what you're watching happening right now, and the misdirection and the complete trying to keep Trump off target goes to that birth certificate. The worst crime in American history was perpetrated against America under the regime of Barack Obama. The media is complicit. Congress is complicit. Federal law enforcement apparently has been complicit. We've got a CIA whistleblower, Dennis Montgomery, whose attorney, Larry Klayman, put it all over the internet the other day that he has said that all of this spying that's been going on American people, that it resulted in manipulation and collusion with judges, Supreme Court justices, congressmen, etc., that James Comey was involved in it, that he was at the top of it. All of this stuff you're seeing about Donald Trump's with the Russians, Donald Trump needs to be impeached, Donald Trump, this is a smokescreen to keep our eyes off of what really happened and what's really going on. And America had better wake up to this, JJ.
Your federal government, your federal law enforcement agencies, our federal intelligence agencies, your federal government in toto has been compromised. The fact that Donald Trump has arrived and said, I'm not going to go along with the status quo anymore, is the cause for alarm for these people on the left. And ultimately, Carl, is it possible that yesterday was simply the first shot fired in an impending civil war between two irreconcilable ideologies?
I don't want our children and grandchildren to see or to participate or to fall victim to such a thing. I don't want our nation to go through such a thing. I don't know that we could survive that. Like Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, when he said, now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any other nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. I mean, God's people, we need to pray. We need to not be afraid to speak truth.
Weekdays from noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. The J.J. McCartney Show. Exposing the truth, exposing the lies, exposing the deep state.
Live from the Nightside Radio Studios.
This is the J.J. McCartney Show.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Coming to you from Nebraska by way of Alaska. Here's J.J. McCartney.
All right, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Good to have you with us on this Tuesday, the 16th day of 2018. Wow. I mean, you know, as fast as 2017 went by, we're going to have to be careful, or 2018 is going to sneak by us as well. And we cannot afford to let 2018 be lost. Because, ladies and gentlemen, there are elections coming up in November. And we still need to put in the work. We really do. You can't assume anything, ladies and gentlemen. We got to work. All right, welcome, everybody. I'm so glad to have you with us today, and I'm very glad to have our guest with us in this second hour of the show, our good friend Sue from Mountain View Off-Grid Living. And Sue, I want to welcome you to the show. And first of all, I hope you had a wonderful holiday season, and I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing very well, and I hope you had a wonderful holiday season, too, but I'm so glad it's over.
Yeah, I understand. I absolutely do. And end of year has to be a hard time, especially in your business. It's got to be, because everybody's, taking every penny they have and buying stuff that they don't need. And, it's just amazing how things slow down, I imagine, in the month of December. Now, I want to talk about what happened in some respects. I want to talk about what happened in Hawaii, first of all. And, from the standpoint of one individual clicking the wrong button 2 times in a row and sending millions of people into panic. I mean, certainly this guy should lose his job, should he not?
I think he has been reassigned, has he not?
Yeah, reassigned is one thing, but I think that, especially when you're working in the field of emergency management, when there's that grotesque level of incompetence shown, that, I don't know about you, but I would have a hard time keeping somebody like that on the payroll.
Well, I'm not, I think I told you this a few minutes ago, I'm not 100% convinced it was a false alarm. I'm going to wait until some more of the information comes in before I make my final decision.
Aha. So some nefarious cause might be behind this? Is it
I don't
possible?
know. That's why I'm waiting to make my decision.
I understand that. I do understand that. Now, here's one of the thoughts I had was, what if it wasn't an accident? Now, what if it was deliberate on the part of the individual that did it? What if he actually believed that it was an emergency? What if, there's a lot of what ifs. There certainly are.
There's a lot of what ifs.
But the thing is, the director of emergency management in Hawaii kind of went out of his way to defend this individual, and it kind of made me wonder that, if this was just gross incompetence, then I think absolutely, the guy should lose his job. But if it was gross incompetence and the director of emergency management defends him anyway, then it's time for a new director of emergency management. Would it not be reasonable to say that?
Well, is there 100% proof that there was not a missile shot off?
You see, that's the question that I don't know. And
there's still too many questions for me to make a decision.
And if there was a missile launched, would the government be forthright in saying that it was? I'd like to think that the Trump administration.
There's too many other things going on right now.
Oh gosh, you're right about that.
For me to make a decision. But the point here that we actually should be looking at is those people would have as low as 15-minute warning that there is a disaster coming. What are you going to do in 15 minutes if you have not prepared ahead of time?
Exactly right. That's
exactly where all of this comes down to nitty-gritty.
And the real information that matters is, how did people respond to this warning? And I think it's safe to say many people panicked. Many people lost their ability to think rationally and then went into hysterics. And
what does that tell you?
They're completely
that they
unprepared.
have not thought of this ahead of time, and they have not thought about being prepared.
And that's what we're going to try and do something about here, because
now, did you see the one family going into their bunker on the news?
I didn't see a bunker. But
they showed on our local news. This one family, they had their arms full, and they were going down into their bunker, and their bunker was prepared.
Right.
They only showed it for about 2 seconds.
And they probably didn't show where exactly it was, because obviously you don't want to advertise that kind of thing. But, the thing is, the scene everybody saw was the parents putting their children down a manhole. Now, I think, Sue, based on what I saw, that was all staged.
Now, that may be.
I mean,
that one made my husband mad. He said, now, let's pretend that missile is coming in, and that missile hits, and all of the parents are dead, and all of those little children are down in those holes.
Yeah. Well, the thing that struck me was, who's going to sit there and videotape while they're putting their kids in the holes? Who's going to actually sit there and run the camera instead of actually assisting the kids and then getting down there with them? Which is what made me think that this was staged.
Let's go back to the bunker. The filmer was in the bunker showing the people coming down into the bunker. Now, how many minutes did they have? 38 minutes?
Well, yeah,
they got a film crew down into the bunker to show the people coming into it.
Yeah.
There's so many things that don't add up about this.
Right. And you know, just the fact that it took the Department of Emergency Management 38 minutes to sound the all clear and say, "Oh, never mind, it was just a test, or it was a mistake. There's no threat." 38 minutes is an eternity when you think that you're in imminent danger.
Yes, exactly. There's just way too many things that don't add up in this for me. That's why I'm not making a decision on anything yet.
Right.
But we still come back to the same thing. Did you see all of those people panicking?
Yes.
If you're prepared, that panic is not there because you know what to do and you know that you've got the preparations to do what you need to do.
And you know,
that's what we should be doing now.
It all comes down to one thing, too. Well, I saw a lot of people after the fact saying that the government was responsible for, all of this. And I understand that, the government made some mistakes, and that's how this whole panic ensued. But the government is not responsible for your emergency preparedness.
That's exactly right. Now, if there is let's take earthquakes. Let's say that there's major earthquakes and it disrupts the road systems across the country. That means that supplies are not going to be delivered. And the government is not going to be delivering to every house the food that you need to survive. If you have not done that ahead of time, then that's your problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. And, I know it's crazy. It's a radical position to actually tell people that they are personally responsible for their own behaviors and their own actions and their own consequences. And for far too long, children in schools have been far too obsessed with participation trophies and not nearly concerned enough with what they're going to do when they get out in the big bad world.
Exactly.
So what can we do? Where should we start, Sue?
With our own children, for one thing. If most of the people I know who have children in school, those children have already been told what to do in particular emergencies.
Right.
They know how to walk the back streets to get home. They know who to trust. Whatever. Right. They've already been talked to about it so that they don't go into panic mode should something happen.
Well, the thing is, though, I think one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is the difference between a drill and the real thing. The only way that you're going to be prepared for the real thing is if you are disciplined in preparing for it and you walk through the scenario with your entire family so they know exactly where to go and what to do and how long to wait. I think one of the keys to this was this message was delivered to over 1 million people's cell phones directly. And as a result of that, can you imagine how the phone systems then got overloaded with people calling to make sure their loved ones were safe?
Oh, I'm sure they would have been. Now, Hawaii is a little bit different situation because you do have so many tourists there. But in your situation and my situation, should those alerts come in, everybody should know exactly where they're supposed to go and exactly what they're supposed to do.
Right.
Before any kind of an emergency happens. If you're on if you're traveling and you're in a tourist situation, then that's a whole different story.
Right. And you know when I remember back to instances where we had to deal with things like tornadoes when we were traveling, and this was back in 1969, summer of '69. We are driving. It was my mom and dad and 4 kids, the eldest of which was 13. Okay? I was the youngest. I was 6, almost 7. And we were driving in a cab-over camper. Mom and dad were up front. Us 4 kids were riding in the camper itself. We go through the state of Iowa, and all of a sudden the weather turns nasty. And it's an actual tornado that's coming towards where we're driving. And all of a sudden we see this family, a farm family, racing out to the road to flag us down, to pull in so that we can shelter from the storm with them. We didn't know these people from Adam. And yet they saw us coming, and they said, they don't know the danger they're in. And so they flagged us down. We pulled into their driveway. They allowed us into their home, and that's where we rode out the storm. And, you know, that scenario in 1969 was a lot more plausible than it is today. Not nearly as many people would do that in 2018 as would have done that in 1969. And so correct. When I look back on that, I think, first of all, I'm glad they did what they did. Second of all, I thought to myself, I would always want to be in a situation where I could help others that were in that position. But for a lot of people, they don't have the opportunity. And, they find themselves facing danger, and they have no clue where they should go and what they should do. And this is, I'm very concerned that what we are seeing, especially after this incident in Hawaii, is we are seeing the vulnerability of America exposed. I mean,
I would say 90. I would say 90 or more % of the people would not know what to do in an emergency.
And that's you think about the consequences if there was the real thing. And I mean, it's a tragedy on a scale that most people can't even comprehend.
Well, right now, the food storage companies like Emergency Essentials are having fantastic sales. A lot of them are one-day sales. I would suggest all of your listeners go to beprepared.com and get on their mailing list so that you get notification of these sales and take advantage of them. They are such good prices that you can't buy the food and prepare it for long-term storage yourself for what they're selling it for. And this food is packaged for 25-year storage.
Wow.
It's excellent food. So I would suggest everybody go on to beprepared.com and get on their email list so that you get those notifications and take advantage. And even if you can't afford to buy a whole case, a lot of times you have to buy 1 or 2 cases to get these at this price. Find a friend, find a neighbor, whatever that's wants to get prepared, and split the order so that you don't have to take that much.
Yeah, great idea.
But at these prices, holy cow, I would say take advantage of it. If you don't have any money, I had my DirecTV cut off so that I could have that money for food storage. There's always ways you can cut corners.
That's right.
Quit eating out so much. Give up that morning coffee at Starbucks. You'll be shocked at put that money in a jar. You'll be surprised how much money you can save and put that money towards food storage and preparedness supplies.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that people need to be able to take advantage of these kinds of things, and I would encourage everybody, not just to buy when there are sales and things like that, but make it a priority to squirrel money away for this. If you get paid every 2 weeks, then take a portion of that, maybe $20 or $30, and tuck it away in a savings account where you're not going to be tempted to touch it, and save as you can over and above what your regular food budget is. And if you do have to trim something else out of the budget, look, in 100 years, will it matter if you saw the latest episode of whatever it is on TV?
No.
You're
exactly right.
Even if it's a prepping show.
Oh, I've got a fire truck going by. Your absolute first thing you need to do in any disaster is make sure you've got clean, pure drinking water. You could only live 3 to 5 days without water. That should be your number one thing on your list. The second is shelter. Most people have their houses where they can shelter in. If your house is destroyed, you need to think about what you're going to do. Do you have a tent? Do you have a camper? Something for shelter. Your third item on your list is food storage. Because you can live, 3 to 5 weeks without food, or 3 to 5 months, depending on how large some of us are. Some of us will be able to live longer. But so your very first thing on your list is water purification.
Yes. Yep. And you know what? It's not nearly as expensive as you think it is.
No, it's not. You just have to do it.
That's right. I got to tell you, we've had the Pro Pure system for, I want to say 3 or 4 years now. And it is fantastic. It really is. We
love ours.
We're a relatively small family. And we go through, I don't know how much water we drink a day, but it's a goodly amount. But, honestly, for the money you invest in a Pro Pure water purification system, it's gravity fed. So that means you don't need electricity. It can take, you could take water out of your drain pipe. I'm sorry, your gutter, your rain gutters, without any qualms whatsoever. Or, take water out, standing water anywhere that you find it, and run it through the Pro Pure system. And you're going to have purified water. And by the way, you don't just use this for everyday use. You also use it to store away purified water, so you have plenty of it on hand. And you know what? I think for the investment, this is the best money we ever spent, was the Pro Pure water purification system. They're affordable, and they're available. And the time to get one is now, not tomorrow, not when the prices go up, but right now. It really is. And as far as
you've had your system, I think, about 3 years.
3 or 4 years.
I ordered that for you.
Right.
And okay, now you haven't had a disaster in that 3 years, correct?
So far, so good.
Okay. Now, let's pretend you did not have that water purification system and a disaster happens tomorrow. It's better to have your system 3 years in advance than 1 day too late. If it's too late, it's too late.
Yes, that's right. And, the thing is, when you were faced with any kind of disaster or, hardship, the thing to do is to squirrel things away. You don't want to, how would it make you feel if your family didn't have water to drink, food to eat, and shelter? How would that make you feel? I just
Pretty
can't
scared,
imagine.
I'd think.
I can't imagine the sorrow that that so many people are in for if they don't prepare. And when you see what happened in Hawaii on Sunday, and I know it's it was a one-time thing, right? But what
one time for that day?
We have madmen in the world that they desperately want to deliver a powerful and damaging blow to America. Okay? And what is the tendency of people? Are they going to choose the hardened targets? No, they will not. They will choose the easy targets, just like that shooter in Las Vegas did. Most of us don't live in areas where there are military bases. I mean, some people do, but most of us that live in flyover country, we don't consider the risks that we're at. But if some enemy was to launch an electromagnetic pulse, where do you think they would aim it to do maximum damage? Smack dab over the middle of the United States.
In the heartland.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly. Did you ever watch that series Jericho when it was on?
Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. Yep. Yeah, you ask my wife that question, she'll roll her eyes. They literally and the thing that bothers me is shows like that never stick around too long. Have you noticed that?
No, they don't. Yeah, they don't do that. But what was interesting in that show was that nothing happened to that town.
Right.
It's just the nukes hit big cities, and it's about how everything shut down, and they had no supplies.
Right. Right. And the scenario the scenario that played out there is while it was dramatized for television, obviously, the scenario that played out there was people running out of food, people running out of fuel, people turning on one another because there's a limited supply and there's so much demand. And you'd be surprised how fast your civil society unravels when people don't have enough to eat and drink and they can't get around. And
exactly,
it's survival of the fittest in their minds, and so they become very, very hostile very soon when somebody threatens their personal supply of whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why whenever you start stocking food, you keep your mouth shut.
Oh, yeah.
You don't advertise the fact that you have those supplies. Because then people are going, when it does get desperate. Speaking of desperate, did you see the newest video out of Venezuela?
No, I didn't.
I'll have to send that to you. It is a fairly large group of people, very, very hungry people, who found a cow. And they all got clubs, and they beat the cow to death and then butchered it out. That's how hungry they are in Venezuela right now.
Wow. Mm.
So, yes, things can get desperate. Things are desperate. We just don't see it out our back door yet. But things can turn very quickly.
Yes, they can.
That's why we prepare now.
And, folks, by the way, when we talk about preparation, go to mountainviewoffgridliving.com. It's just exactly the way it's spelled, mountainviewoffgridliving.com. Sue is always willing to offer whatever advice you need. You can find links to all kinds of great things at the website. And Sue, the thing is, a lot of people, they're so, people's budgets are squeezed very tight. And
yes, they are, mine included.
The first thought that people have when they have a little extra money in their pocket is what? Sadly.
Oh, new clothes, new car, new shoes, new whatever.
Yeah, big screens. The latest gizmo. Got to have the iPhone 10. All these things going on, and
Here's another one for you. JJ, which I doubt that you do. But have you ever watched Walking Dead?
Watched a couple episodes of it. It was a little intense, and it was not.
It is very intense.
It was maybe.
But what I've always found interesting is that they were going through empty houses, empty farms, grocery stores, like big box stores, and all of the particular things that they were looking for. They were passing by those big screen TVs, and they were looking for matches and water and fuel and the basic things you need, and all those big fancy things that people would think to go buy today was exactly what they were leaving alone then, because they were totally useless.
Right. Well, we had just disconnected our satellite service. And we decided not to do any kind of commercial TV. We just we got the antenna on the roof, and that's it. And
that's so what we have.
We did not we didn't get into The Walking Dead. We knew some other people that did, but the thing is, I mean, the scenarios that you see play out there. I mean, obviously, as I said before, everything is dramatized for obvious reasons on TV, but the scenario where there is very limited food around and everybody is scavenging for it. We're talking about, going back to the days of the caveman. People would just as soon kill you to steal the, whatever it is that you've got in your cart, and,
Exactly.
It's really, I hate to say that we have reached a point in our civilization where it would really only take one terrible tragedy to maybe knock this entire nation off of its mooring.
Yes, I agree.
And it wouldn't even necessarily have to be a fatal blow. Once you've lost...
Paul Craig Roberts gave a speech not too long ago, and he was saying that if there is a big disaster, and if you have cash in your pocket, and if you can manage to get to your local grocery store before the hordes do, to buy a few things, to go for the basics like flour, sugar, salt, that kind of thing, because everybody else is going to be after other things.
Yes.
And he was saying you'll have about 15 to 20 minutes if there is a major event to get to the store and get a few things.
Wow.
So basically what he was saying is you better have it in your house already.
Right. I understand that completely, and I think that, what we have to do, especially, with the economy being where it is now, we have to think in terms of stocking on these things, and it's not enough just to buy it and have it in your pantry. You've got to be able to store it so it lasts. And I know we've talked about this a million times about how how to make sure your flour lasts longer, and how to make sure that everything is sealed, and you want to have oxygen absorbers in your in different storage so that it doesn't go bad over time, and all these things that you have to know. And nobody's going to learn that in 15 minutes after a disaster.
Exactly. Here's what I'm advising everybody to do now. Go on the internet, look up your area for wild edible foods. Print off a picture of it, print off a description of it, and what it's used for. If it's edible, or if you use it for medicines. If it's edible, how do you prepare it to eat it? And make yourself a notebook. That's something you could be doing now, because that may save your behind one of these days. Right.
And there's a lot of different things people could learn from. One of the great things I'm not bragging, but one of the things that I feel, fairly well schooled in is, because I grew up in Alaska and then, lived on a lake in Arkansas. My dad taught us how to do a lot of practical things. Most people under the age of 30 don't even know what a trot line is. let alone, what goes into setting one up.
Most people under 30 don't know how to fry themselves an egg.
Yeah, it's true. But back in biblical times, one of the major sources of protein was fish. Okay, and and back then, how did you store fish? Well, if you
dried it.
You dried it and you salted it. Those are the two things you do.
Mm-hmm.
And today, I don't know if there's anybody around that knows how to do it. And if they did, I don't think they'd have the salt on hand. They wouldn't, they would truly be clueless. And, you can...
Well, quite honestly, JJ, I don't think they'd have the fish to begin with.
That's true.
Because I don't think they'd know how to catch one or how to gut it.
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
So, yes, we have done a great disservice to our young people.
We really have. And, honestly, I mean, when I was young, I was one of the designated fish cleaners, It was like my dad looked at us kids as indentured free labor, And so we'd go out and catch tons of fish. And then, we would spend, half hour cleaning the fish and getting it ready to go in the cooler and then on the way home to the freezer. But I mean, I look at it now and it's like I took so much of that stuff for granted when I was young. I really did. The information that I got from my dad raising us the way he did was so valuable, and I really didn't appreciate it the way I should have. But knowing it now, it's like, these young people today, if your kids don't know how to do this stuff, if you don't know how to do this stuff, then, use the resources you have at your fingertips right now on the internet. Download, print out instructions on how to do this, and then make sure you know how to do it, and then go do it. Because if you don't practically know how to do it, then, what are you going to say? What are you going to say when you don't have food? I mean, it really is. It's this serious. And what makes me sad is that so many people just roll their eyes when you tell them you're prepping. They do. They mock preppers. They think we're all a bunch of rednecks. And it's like I would rather be a live redneck than a dead snob.
Just be careful who you tell, because your house is the one they're going to come to.
Well, that's true. But I'm talking about, even if you're at the grocery store and you're picking up supplies and stuff, they look at what you're buying and we're one of those, huh? And it's like, well,
one day I was at the grocery store and I had a lot of cans of food storage. And the little old couple in front of me was just really curious. And finally she couldn't stand it anymore. And she said, "What is all of that?" And I said, "It's long-term food storage." And she said, "Well, why are you buying that?" Well, I lifted my voice, and everyone within several checkout stands got an education on why they should be storing food. She goes, I think maybe we ought to start buying that too. Yeah, right. You should, because that means that you're not going to be coming to my house.
Exactly. But what we're looking at now is, we're looking at the possibility of our children and our grandchildren not having the basics that you need to live. And, you look back, if they were to turn the lights off tomorrow, so many people it would be 200 years ago for them. They would not have the basic survival skills to last a week or even, shorter than that, especially this time of year.
Uh-huh.
And, I think of that, and I really want people to take it seriously, because everything that we take for granted today, you have no idea how quickly it can go away. I mean, we're talking...
In 38 minutes, apparently.
Yeah, or less. Yeah.
Under 38 minutes.
Well, can you imagine if that were a real attack? I just can't imagine what... the Hawaiian Islands would have all of a sudden been thrust back that 200 years in history. And
exactly.
And imagine if they lost all phone service, all electricity, the sheer terror of that. And obviously,
and also keep in mind that probably almost all of their food has to be brought in.
That's right. And you lose cold storage, you lose refrigeration. Nutritionally, it could devastate them in very short order. I mean, yes. It's frightening, and you have I don't know how many people live in Hawaii. I think it's something like 2.5 million, maybe.
Of hungry people. Now stop and think what you just said.
Right.
That's pretty scary.
It really is. It really is, and if you were to have and when you're talking about somebody being stricken by a nuclear bomb. There is, the possibility that, not only does it wipe out your infrastructure, but, suddenly nothing works anymore. Even your boats that require electricity to run. Imagine having boats out there floating in the water that don't have any power and can't move. I mean, it's really the implications. If that had been a real attack instead of a failed drill, I just cannot imagine how the people of Hawaii would have survived. And obviously, most
of them would not.
We have a government that is already stretched thin when it comes to disasters, and the year that just concluded, 2017. Was one of the most devastating years in terms of natural disasters that we've ever had. And, the government was already stretched thin before Puerto Rico was stricken by, I forget which hurricane it was that hit Puerto Rico. I think it was Maria or something like that. But the devastation in Puerto Rico, I mean, the majority of people in Puerto Rico still don't have electricity. I mean, that
that's exactly right.
You think about that, folks. How would you do if you had to go that long without the basics? I mean, the quality of life and the dangers of disease and all the things that they face, and I can't imagine what it does to the psyche of a people to all of a sudden be in that situation. So, Sue, assuming that the people out there are adequately panicked, what is the very first thing that they all need to do?
Well, the very first thing, like I said, the three most important things you do: water purification, shelter, and food storage. Now, in that situation, the people who live there, I don't know about water purification, but they probably will have shelter unless it's destroyed. But luckily, they live in a warm climate. They can actually sleep outside. It's getting pretty chilly where you and I live, so sleeping outside is going to be rather difficult this time of year. And then food. And you've got to have your food packaged so that if there is a big earthquake, a lot of people do home canning, and they have all of their jars of their food in the pantry. All right, what about if there is a 7 or an 8 point earthquake and those jars are bouncing against each other and they all break? You've lost all your food storage. Have you packed those jars of food so that they're more protected? Have you tied down your tied down your gas water heater so it doesn't fall over? Do you know how to turn the gas off at the meter so that if the line breaks, the gas is not pouring under your house? Yep. I mean, there's 1,000 different things to think about ahead of time, not when the disaster happens.
That's right. And if you live in the big city, I can tell you from personal know-how that the reason that they have the big fires that they have in the big cities after earthquakes is because of broken gas mains and broken gas lines, and people just don't understand that that gas is under pressure, and as soon as those pipes break, You can't take any chances. It's very dangerous. And when you think about it, I mean, I remember. Well, gosh, here we don't have gas plumbed to our house, so that's one thing we don't have to worry about. But in terms of, how in the world would you cook your food if all of a sudden, I mean, because consider this, most people, their proteins, their meats and whatever, are stored in freezers, and it's perishable, and as soon as the electricity is out for a certain amount of time, your food is going to go bad. And, it's like I've said so many times, too late at that point to do anything about it. One of the things I think also to mention, Sue, is people that require medications. You need to have a good supply of medications. I would recommend at least 30, if not 60, if not 90 days worth of your prescriptions on hand, especially if you're like me, you're dependent on insulin and other medications, without which I probably wouldn't be here today. And it is important that you not only have these on hand, but make sure that you can store them in a cool place where they're going to last longer. And
exactly.
I think I feel like I'm fortunate to live where we live because we are a relatively safe place. And we have plenty of places we could go in the event that there were some terrible thing that would happen. But right where we are, I believe we're nearly as safe as anybody can be, as long as the civil society is preserved. And this is the danger, especially in the bigger cities and the suburbs, is that civil society is going to break down so fast. And at that point, your choices are bug out, or you have to defend yourself and everything you have all the time.
That's exactly right.
Guns and ammunition. That's also something you want to think about. Is it not?
I agree. I agree.
In that scenario, ammunition is just like currency. It really is. It's worth something.
It is. It's worth more than currency.
Yeah, exactly, when you think about it. The other thing, too, though, is don't, as you've said, don't tell a lot of people what you're up to, especially when it comes to your guns and your ammunition. Because...
according to anything.
Exactly. So,
yeah.
So, okay, Sue, what's the phone number people can dial to get in touch with you?
They can call 208-615-6331. They can visit my website at mountainviewoffgridliving.com. That's all spelled out and all run together. And if you have any questions, give me a call.
Yeah, she's always there. As far as I know, you've always been there when I called.
Yeah.
So, folks,
I'm always here. So, yeah, if anybody needs any help, call me.
It's Mountain View
You're just
Off-Grid.
getting started and have no idea what you're doing? Yeah.
Mountain View Off-Grid Living is the website, mountainviewoffgridliving.com. And, Sue, we do appreciate you being with us today, and I really do want folks to take this seriously. What happened in Hawaii on Sunday, some people say it was just a stupid mistake. I think it was a learning opportunity, a teachable moment for people that may not understand just how serious that situation could have been and might have been. And let's face it, for some people it was. I mean, when you put your kids down a manhole, it's too late. You've waited too long.
That's exactly right. That was pretty scary.
It really was.
All right, JJ, will you say hello to your family for me? And you have an absolutely wonderful day. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Sue. Have a great day. God bless you.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.
All right, folks, that's Sue. MountainViewOffGridLiving.com is the website. And we do appreciate having her with us today and taking the time to spend with us. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I've got a few other things I want to mention. And then tomorrow on the program, IQ Al Rassouli will be with us. Stick around. We'll be right back.
The J.J. McCartney Show.
Hey, everybody. J.J. McCartney back here for our good friends at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com. You know, folks, there's one thing that there never seems to be a shortage of in this world, and that is uncertainty, unrest. You know, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Natural disasters, economic downturns, whatever it is, you can be prepared by going to MountainViewOffGridLiving.com. They have got everything you need, from ProPure gravity-fed water filtration systems to Kimberly stoves to these composting toilets. Ladies and gentlemen, at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com, you can prepare for anything. Food storage, no problem. Advice, no problem. Call our good friend Sue at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com. Find out what's there for you. Great prices, great advice, and guess what, folks? You'll find it all at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com.
I think that they represent a style of honesty that the public craves right now.
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is. Yes.
I think people are tired of the old school politicking.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Is this vast right-wing conspiracy.
They represent a style of honesty.
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is. Yeah. Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
That has been conspiring against my husband since the day he announced for president.
I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. I never told anybody to lie.
They represent...
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is. Yes.
A style of honesty that the public craves right now.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
Not a single time. Never.
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is.
Actually, I changed my mind. I've evolved on this issue.
What I say, you already know, but you don't believe. You won't accept, you don't conceive. When you're inside your car, you feel safest of all. Are you safe? Are you? 2 tons of sheet metal in your hands. 2 tons don't run on autopilot. You have a mission. It's no collision. Hold the phone. Don't text. You're angling to be next. Oh, you've done it before. What's the harm? Just this once, there's no alarm. Got your hands on the wheel? No big deal. Brothers and sisters, you won't see it coming. You're off the road. Your life explodes. It's not worth it. Don't do it. You only think there's nothing to it. Put it down. Hang up. Pay attention to highway action. Behind the wheel, there is no such thing as a small distraction. Join the conversation at decidetodrive.org, a public service message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, who would rather help keep your bones strong than put them back together.
JJMcCartney.com.
Parkinson's disease is a neurological movement disorder affecting an estimated 1 million Americans, including many under age 40. The American Parkinson Disease Association is the largest grassroots network in the United States, working to help ease the burden and find the cure for those coping with Parkinson's. Visit apdaoptimism.org today to find out how you can help millions live with dignity and optimism. Your action today will help APDA put an end to Parkinson's disease.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's the Tuesday edition of the J.J. McCartney Show. Well, folks, flu season. Flu season is here, and the flu is everywhere in the United States right now. And doctors say that it could get worse. There are some new strains, the influenza virus, that sicken millions of Americans. This season already the most widespread outbreak since public health authorities began keeping track more than a dozen years ago. Right now, there's the threat of more strains emerging that might even get worse. Flu is everywhere in the U.S. now, says Dan Jernigan, director of the Influenza Division at the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Disease, saying this is the first year we've had the entire continental U.S. be the same color on the graph, meaning there is widespread activity in all of the continental U.S. at this point. Now, the most optimistic assumption among government experts is that the season peaked a few weeks ago, marking the apex of what was already an early and severe outbreak. However, such an outbreak requires observers to ignore that outpatient doctor visits have continued to climb in the first week of 2018. The recommendation is that you don't want to be in a doctor's office or a hospital unless you absolutely have to be. And that's something I think it bodes mentioning, especially for people with compromised immune systems. Stay away from hospitals. There are actual hospitals that have declined visitors, saying, nope, we're not going to allow visitors because of the threat of infection. So, I mean, folks, it is, and this is with optimal situations where, we've got everything we need. The lights are on. Everything is safe. But you've got these bugs flying around, and, there's some people out there with compromised immune systems, and we just don't want to take any chances. So unless you absolutely have to be in the hospital or at a doctor's office, I recommend 2 things. Stay away unless you absolutely have to be there. And secondly, wear a mask and use lots of hand sanitizer. You cannot be too careful, especially with the outbreaks that we've seen already. Okay? Just a friendly reminder from your neighborhood talk radio host. Thank you all for being with us today. Again, thanks to Mountain View Off-Grid Living. Sue, we appreciate you. And thanks to Corky for calling us in hour number 1. Folks, something else I wanted to mention. I got a call, or actually a message this morning on Facebook from a friend of mine that we've known for a long time, informing me that one of my good friends from back in the day passed away 10 days ago. It wasn't just any guy. He was the best man at my wedding. And died at the age of 67. And I just, I want to ask you to please pray for that family. All right? Pray for them for healing. Pray for them for everything they need. And just, please remember them in your prayers. I got to tell you, life is short. Life is precious. And the next thing you know, you young whippersnappers out there are going to be wondering where your lives went. Looking back and saying, what happened to the last 30 or 35 years? It flies by. It really does. So, you know what? Cherish the people you love. And as we always say on this program, be good to yourselves, and if you possibly can, be good to someone else. Because we're all only here for a limited time only. Friends don't grow on trees. And if you have had falling out with whomever over the years, please remember, it's probably not that important. Whatever it is probably petty. But, the people you love and the people you care about, just make sure that you let them know. All right? Okay. So, as I said, be good to yourselves, and if you possibly can, be good to someone else. And remember, we'll win in the end because there are more of us than there are of them, because God is with us. And because we're all in this thing together. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. See you on Wednesday right back here with IQ Al Rassooli tomorrow. See ya.